In November 1720, a courtroom in Jamaica sentenced a crew of pirates to hang. One by one, the men were condemned. Then the judge turned to the last two prisoners in the dock, and the room fell silent. Because these two pirates, who had fought harder than any man on that ship, were women. The judge asked if they had anything to say before he passed the sentence of death, and what they said stopped the execution cold. Each of them spoke the same 4 words. "My lord, I am pregnant." The court did not know what to do. You cannot hang an unborn child for the crimes of its mother, so the gallows waited. And the story of how 2 women ended up on the deck of a pirate ship, swinging cutlasses beside the most feared crew in the Caribbean, is one of the strangest in all of history. Tonight, the fire and I will tell you who they really were. Hear that? That's my fire settling in, which means it's time. Pull up a chair and get comfortable. I'm Daniel Reed, and tonight we have not one life by the fire, but 2. 2 women, born far apart, in different countries, to different lives, who each hid the truth of who they were just to survive. 2 secret lives that would collide on the same ship, in the same year, under the same black flag. Let's begin with the first of them, a red-haired girl in Ireland, born into a lie. Our first woman is Bonny, born in Ireland around 1698, and her life began as a secret. Her father was a respected lawyer, her mother was the family's maid. To hide the scandal, the story goes, her father dressed the little girl as a boy and told everyone she was the son of a relative, being trained as his law clerk. So Anne learned something very early, a lesson that would one day save her life. She learned that the right set of clothes could make the world see whatever you wanted it to see. When the secret came out, the scandal ruined him. He gathered what money he had and sailed for a fresh start in the American colonies, to Charlestown in Carolina. There, on a plantation, Anne grew into a wild, red-haired young woman with a furious temper. The stories say she once beat a man so badly for grabbing her that he was laid up for weeks. Her father dreamed of marrying her into wealth. Anne had other plans. She fell for a poor, charming sailor named James Bonny, a small-time pirate, and married him against her father's will. He cut her off completely. So Anne and her new husband did what desperate people did in those days. They sailed for the one place in the world that welcomed pirates, a lawless island called New Providence in the Bahamas. New Providence was the closest thing the pirates ever had to a kingdom. In the port town of Nassau, there was no governor, no law, no master. Just a few thousand pirates, smugglers, and runaways living entirely by their own rules. They called it the Pirate Republic. For a woman like Anne, it was freedom she had never tasted. But her husband turned out to be a disappointment. When the British finally sent a governor to clean up Nassau, James Bonny chose to become an informer, a snitch, earning coins by naming his old friends to the authorities. Anne was disgusted. And then, into a Nassau tavern, walked the man who would change everything. A flashy, charming pirate captain named John Rackham, known to everyone by the nickname stitched to his colorful clothes. They called him Calico Jack. Anne and Calico Jack fell for each other fast and hard. When her husband refused to let her go, the couple did the only thing that made sense to them. One dark night, they slipped out of the harbor, stole a ship, and sailed off to make Anne something no father had ever imagined for her, a pirate. Now, here is where our two threads begin to pull toward each other, because there was another sailor in Calico Jack's new crew who was hiding an even deeper secret than Anne. This sailor was quiet, tough, and, when a fight broke out, utterly without fear. Anne, the stories say, found herself drawn to the slim young man over the weeks at sea, and eventually, privately, tried to make her feelings known. It was a dangerous move, and it forced the sailor into a corner, with only one way out, to reveal the truth, quietly, to protect them both. The sailor was a woman. Her name was Mary Reed. And here is the part that makes this more than a coincidence. Mary's disguise was not the trick of a single desperate night at sea. She had been living as a man for almost her entire life, since before she could even remember choosing it. Mary's story began in England, years before, with the same trick that shaped Anne, a mother hiding the truth with a set of boys' clothes. Mary was born out of wedlock. Her mother, desperately poor, dressed her as her dead older brother, so the family could keep receiving money from a wealthy grandmother. Mary played a dead boy to keep her family alive. She never really stopped. As a young woman, dressed as a man, Mary found work no woman was allowed. First as a foot soldier, then in the cavalry. On the battlefield, by the accounts that survive, she was brave and well-liked. And there, in the army, she fell in love with a fellow soldier and revealed herself to him. They married, and for a brief while Mary lived openly as a woman, running a small inn together. It may have been the only truly peaceful chapter of her life. But then her husband died, the inn failed, and Mary Read did the only thing she knew how to do to survive. She put the men's clothes back on and went back to sea. That ship was taken by pirates, and Mary, offered the choice to join them, took it, which is how she ended up on Calico Jack's deck, standing beside a red-haired woman with a secret of her own. By the way, Anne and Mary trusted each other with a secret that could get them killed. All I ask is a smaller trust. Tap subscribe, and I'll keep a chair by this fire for you every week. For a glorious few months in 1720, they sailed together and became a legend. Calico Jack's crew was small, and they hunted small. Fishing boats, trading sloops, anything they could outrun and outfight in the waters around Jamaica. But it was not Calico Jack the victims remembered afterward. It was the two women. Because when it came time to fight, the accounts all agree on one striking thing. Anne and Mary were the fiercest fighters on the whole ship. They wore men's jackets and loose trousers in the heat of battle, pistols and a cutlass slung across their chests, and they cursed, boarded, and fought as hard as any man Calico Jack commanded. The sailors they robbed remembered the two howling women long after they forgot the captain. Witnesses at the trial would later swear to all of it, under oath. There is a famous story about Mary, impossible to fully confirm, but told and retold ever since. Mary, it is said, fell in love with a gentle young sailor the crew had captured. When that sailor quarreled with a brutal, experienced pirate and was challenged to a duel, Mary was terrified he would be cut to pieces. So she did something extraordinary. She picked her own fight with the same brute and arranged her duel to happen 2 hours before his. She killed the man outright and saved the one she loved. For one bright, violent summer, two women who had spent their whole lives in disguise were finally, fully themselves. It could not last. In October 1720, the reckoning came. The governor of Jamaica had had enough of Calico Jack and sent an armed sloop under a pirate hunter to run him down. They caught the crew exactly where pirates were most vulnerable, anchored quietly in a bay after a captured cargo of wine, and by most accounts, deep in their cups, drunk and unready. As the attackers swarmed over the side, the pirate men, the fearsome, hardened crew, panicked. They dropped below deck and hid in the hold like frightened children. And according to the story that has echoed for 300 years, only two people stood their ground on that open deck and fought. Bonny and Mary Read, two women, cutlasses swinging, screaming down into the hold at their own crewmates to come up and fight like men. One account claims that Anne, disgusted, fired her pistol down into the hold where the men were cowering. It was not enough. Two fighters against a full boarding party could only end one way. The pirates were overpowered, chained, and carried to Jamaica to stand trial for their lives. Now the courtroom from the beginning of our story comes back around. Calico Jack and his men were quickly convicted and condemned to hang. Anne was allowed one last visit to see him before his execution, and she gave him no comfort at all. As the story goes, she looked at the charming captain who had led them all to ruin and told him she was sorry to see him there, but that if he had fought like a man, he need not have been hanged like a dog. Cold, final words for the man she had run away to sea with. Then Anne and Mary were tried in their turn, and condemned to hang along with the rest. And that is the moment both women played their last card. Each of them pleaded her belly, the old legal claim that could stay in execution. They declared that they were pregnant. The court had them examined, found that it was true, and their hangings were postponed. The rope would have to wait. Mary Read never left that Jamaican prison. Within a few months she was dead, most likely of a violent fever that swept the cells. She was buried in April 1721, still a prisoner. But Anne Bonny simply vanishes. There is no record of her execution, none at all. The most feared woman in the Caribbean disappears completely from the pages of history, and to this day no one knows what became of her. Some believe her wealthy father bought her freedom and took her quietly home. The truth sailed off into the dark with her. Remember the secret that started both their lives, the boy's clothes, the hidden self? For Anne and Mary, disguise was never a game. It began as a cage their families locked them in, and somehow they turned it into the key that set them free. And that, my friend, is where this story turns toward you. Anne and Mary were told, from the moment they were born, exactly who the world would let them be, and they refused it. They picked up a skill the world said was not theirs to have, and they used it to walk straight through a locked door. You are doing a version of that right now. Every language you learn is a door the world did not hand you, one you are building for yourself, word by word, night by night. Nobody can take a skill like that away from you. Nobody can tell you it was never yours. Anne and Mary picked up a cutlass. You are picking up a language. Learn the thing that opens doors, and no one gets to decide who you are but you. Before the fire burns down, one question tonight. Anne Bonny and Mary Read both chose a dangerous freedom over a safe cage. So tell me, do you think they were reckless or were they brave? One word in the comments, reckless or brave. And tell me where in the world you're listening from. I read every single comment by this fire. If this story earned it, subscribe. You bring the chair, I bring the history. And next time, we leave the sea for the snow. A ship far grander than any pirate sloop, thought to be unsinkable, meets something in the dark of the North Atlantic. You may think you know the story. You have never heard it told like this. Pull up a chair and find out. The fire's still warm, and there is always a chair for you. I'm Daniel Reed, and this is Fireside History.